We may live over 5,000 miles from Lincoln Financial Field, but what we lack in proximity, we make up for in the film study. And each and every week, we'll be bringing you in-depth sort of film breakdowns from across the pond and the Sooner State. Welcome to On the Shane page. I am your host, Shane Half. You can follow me on Twitter at Shane Half NFL. I am joined by BGN's own film guru, Jonny Page. Give him a follow on Twitter at JohnnyPage9. Jonny, how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing a lot better, 90 minutes ago, Shane? If anything sounds off audio-wise and stuff, just forgive us. We'll tweet about it. But we've had a bit of a nightmare because StreamYard has decided to crash on us this evening. And it was the only time we had to record this podcast. So we think we've made it work. We hope people can hear what I'm saying at some point. But yeah, if there are any audio issues, etc., then we do apologize. But yes, I was doing better about an hour ago. I sort of was trying to figure out how we're going to do this, but I think it would actually be a good show, which is why we wanted to do it, because you had quite a good idea that you stole from someone, like all good ideas, which we'll get into in a second. But yeah, fingers crossed we actually get this out to people, because it hopefully should be a pretty interesting lesson.
Yeah, if you are watching this live and you drop comments, which we always appreciate, just know we're not going to be interacting with those because we're recording this hours ago. And then I did some editing to upload it. So we're basically recording our video in Skype while I'm screen recording my screen, so I can try to cobble it all together in post-production, and hopefully it works. But what we're going to do today is we are going to go through the Eagles 53-man roster, and we're basically going to briefly touch on each player and sort of put them on a grading scale. This is an idea that I stole from Taylor Kyles. You can follow him on Twitter at tkyles39. He does great work for Pat's Pulpit. He and I have interacted on some draft stuff before, and I saw him post this for the Patriots roster, and I thought it was really cool. So we'll dive into it here in a second. Before we do that, though, I do want to get to a quick review. We're trying to push to 100 reviews before the regular season starts. We are at 52 on Apple Podcasts. We're at 43 on Spotify right now. So keep those coming in. But this one came from Milton Nakobe Jalen, maybe some favorite players there, that said, Shane and Jonny are awesome. The detailed X's and O's analysis has helped me understand so much more about what I'm seeing in these games. So that's always great to hear that Jonny and I both come from an education background, and Jonny still works in education. And I know that's one of the things I really enjoy, is helping people just to understand the game that they love so much just a little bit more. So that may not be what we're doing today. We may not be breaking down film, but we will get back to that, I promise, as soon as we get to the regular season. So without any further ado, Jonny, shall we jump into this?
Yeah, do you want to give a very brief explanation? It'd be nice if everyone could see this live, of course, about sort of how we're going to rank each player. You don't need to go into great detail, but basically we're going to go through every single player, as you mentioned, and we're going to sort of give them a very brief ranking in terms of how many categories are there. 8 different categories. So hopefully you'll be able to see, whether you're watching this live, listening to it, check out Twitter timelines or whatever, you'll be able to see the categories we're using. But they essentially go through like the generic All-Pro being number 1, Pro Bowl being number 2, Quality Starter being number 3. A Quality Starter with upside is number 4. So I guess you're saying is not yet there, but has the potential to do it. Number 5 is like a high-end role player. 6 is like a spot starter, replacement level type player. Then we've got your backup, and last but not least, someone who we don't actually think should be on the roster. I don't know if we're going to use the practice squad today. It feels a bit mean, that 8th category, basically just disagreeing with Harry Roseman completely. At the time of recording as well, by the way, I know the practice squad rules have changed the last couple of years, so I know that guys like Dylan McMahon, the centre, have made it onto the practice squad. I think even Jack Stoll might be back as well. But for the purpose of this, we're just going to rank the 53. And yeah, I don't think anyone's going to worry too much that we haven't given Jack Stoll a rating. So we'll just focus on the 53 as it stands at the time of recording. But I know these things are pretty flexible. And I should have said as well, we haven't done this off air. So we're going to have to mutually sort of agree. So we might disagree. Some of them will whiz through. Some of them we might disagree a little bit about how we rank the players. And we'll just have a little chat basically about how we rank them. And we'll try to come to an agreement if we can on sort of what we think about the players. Is that a pretty fair explanation, Shane?
Absolutely. So yeah, I have descriptions for each of these. So all pro is basically they have top 5 potential at their position. Pro Bowl caliber is top 10 potential at the position. Obviously, you mentioned quality starter. Quality starter with upside is a year 1, 2, or 3 guy that I think has starting potential. And then you pretty well covered the rest of them. So let's go ahead and dive in. You want to do offense first or defense first, Jonny?
Yeah, start with offense. We'll start with the obvious one, the QB position. I think we'll just go position in order, I guess. It'd be easy that way. Then I can mentally keep track of what I'm doing as well, because we have not done this off air, which we probably should have done. But like most things on the pod, we just put it together. So I am now racking my brains while you're talking and actually thinking where I would put them all. I've got a pretty good idea, but I might be persuaded by your arguments as well. So there we go. Do you want to start things off with quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts, I would put solidly in that all-pro caliber. We've seen him be a top 5 player at his position. Obviously, it was a down year last year. I know people on the feed have heard this by now because Mark mentioned it on a show I recorded with him yesterday, but I'm going to drop it on you, Jonny, because I doubt you've heard it. Jalen Hurts had 15 interceptions last year. Do you know how many turnover-worthy plays Jalen Hurts had last season?
I couldn't tell you. Is it going to be something like 11 or 12 or?
It was actually 15, but he's
lovely.
the only quarterback in PFF charting with over 100 dropbacks that has a 100% conversion rate on turnover-worthy plays to turnovers. So last year, obviously an anomaly. Mark called it the most unlucky season of any NFL quarterback in the history of the game. Jalen Hurts, I have solidly as all pro.
Yeah, no discussion or no disagreement here. I reckon actually a lot of people, based on what I read at the moment from everyone who hates Jalen Hurts online, apparently, it's weird how I've suddenly become a Jalen Hurts defender, because a lot of guys in the national media seem incredibly down on him. They may have him as maybe tier 2 or tier 3. I would put him in tier 1. I do think there is top 5 potential. And why do I think that? Because I've seen it. So it's quite nice that I've seen top 5 potential. So I would go all pro as well on Jalen Hurts. I would take Kenny Pickett. I was sort of interested to see how harsh you'd be here. I would put him in like that tier 6, that like spot starter, decent role player, but I could easily have him as a backup as well. But I feel like until I see him get worse, I would bump him up ever so slightly. And then I would put Tanner McKee purely in the backup, like the tier below, just because I haven't seen it yet as an NFL quarterback in the regular season. Any disagreements there?
No, not really. I mean, you can do a lot worse than Kenny Pickett. He's been a 2-year starter, so calling him a spot starter, replacement-ish level, like I think he blurs that line between that and backup. And I'm not high enough on Tanner McKee to call him a quality starter upside, even though he's in that year 1 to 3. So I agree with you there. So I'll go with you on those. Let's roll over to running back. And I'll take the slam dunk here again and just say Saquon Barkley's all pro caliber, correct? Any disagreements?
No, not at all. Top 5 is without a doubt. I think he's probably top 5, let alone potential. He probably already is top 5. So that's an easy one. I think Gainwell's an interesting one. Where would you put Gainwell based on the tiers you've got?
I think I would classify Gainwell as a high-end role player. I think that for what the Eagles want to use him for is like the 2-minute drill type back, bringing him in to pass protect a little bit. I think he can pull off that role well. I don't think he's a guy that you want to be your starter, but I think I would have him above just a quality role player. I'd probably say high-end role player that's a little one-dimensional.
Interesting. I think I would do the same with Gainwell and Shipley. I think some others might see Shipley more as maybe a potential starter. I'm not sure I see Shipley as a starter. So I think he's more of someone you want to come in and spell the main guy rather than ever be the main guy. So based on this, I would put both of them actually as like high-end role players. So what that tier 5, I'm putting them both in. You disagree? Would you have Shipley above me? I imagine most people listening have Shipley above me. Any arguments?
Yeah, I don't know. Shipley's so hard because he's a rookie and we haven't seen it. I would probably put him just a spot down right now as a quality role player rather than a high-end role player because I haven't seen it. But I do certainly think he has that potential. I just haven't seen it in the NFL yet beyond a couple of preseason games.
But how much do you really need to see running backs do? Like, do you not know what a running back is?
That's true.
I feel like they're a pretty easy position to evaluate. I feel like I know what Shipley is sort of already. I highly doubt he's going to dramatically change me. I mean, I should have said at the start, Shane is the man with all the power here because he's the one filling in with the document as we go along. So I think I've argued my case for him being the same as Gamewell. Apparently, I'm the shifty guy now. There you go. I can see based on the spreadsheet you're changing that you're going to give in to me. Yeah, I think I agree with you in most positions. I don't count preseason, but I think running back is one position where you can, and he looked like Will Shipley. Like, he could catch, he could block relatively well. He wasn't going to break one off on like a 50-yarder, but he'll get 5 when there's 3 available. I think he's that kind of back. I don't think he's someone you want to be the guy, but I think he's a perfectly adequate backup. Right, receiver's going to be an interesting one, actually, because the Eagles have had a bit of a random receiver room over the offseason. I will start with the obvious one. This might cause some disagreements from people listening, but I would put AJ Brown tier 1, Devontae Smith tier 2. I absolutely love Devontae Smith, but the way we've categorized this is top 5 potential. As much as I love Devontae Smith, I think top 5 is tough. There are some seriously good receivers out there, and I think expecting him to be top 5 is really, really hard, especially on a team that already has a top 5 receiver, because I think AJ Brown is already in the top 5 this year. Would you disagree with me there?
No, I would not. That's how I would stack it up as well. I think when you think about top 5 wide receivers, there has to be, like, I think he's a very good player, but if you ask me off the top of my head who the top 5 receivers are, I would probably name guys like, Justin Jefferson, he's a freak. Tyreek Hill, freakish speed. Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown. Like, those are the kinds of guys I would put in the top 5. I don't think it's disrespectful to Devontae Smith to say he's an incredible player, but he doesn't have that one freakish quality that I think gives him top 5 potential. Like, he doesn't have the big frame. So, he's remarkably good at contested catches for his size. He's got a good release package, but to me, you either need to be really big or really fast, probably, to be top 5. He's neither, but I think, solidly top 10 for sure.
Yeah, and you're comparing like top 5 guys like Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, like freaks of the freaks of the freaks. For him to get top 5 is really, really difficult. What about the final 3 then? So for those of you that are not aware, obviously it was Jahan Dotson, Jonny Wilson, and Britton Covey. Very weird 3 when you say it like that. Very, very different players, all 3 of them. How have you got those 3 stacked up?
I think I would call Jahan Dotson a quality starter because I kind of said that I think he's a solid wide receiver too. And I think if you're a solid wide receiver too, I would call you a quality starter in the league. Jonny Wilson, I could see quality starter upside, because the way I described that was a year 1 through 3 player with starting potential. And I think he's got that down the road. Maybe you say he doesn't have that right now. And maybe we put him down more in like a quality role player at the time being. And then Britton Covey, I have in the backup special teamer role. Like, he's, if we were ranking him as a punt returner, he's probably all pro caliber, but ranking him as a wide receiver, he's a backup special teamer.
Yeah, I would agree with you on Covey. I would have him as a backup special teamer. I'm lower on both of them than you, actually. I would definitely not have Jonny Wilson as a quality starter upside. I don't think Jonny Wilson will ever be a starter. I don't think he moves well enough. I think he's always going to be a role player. Like, I think he's got a very, very valuable role. I can go either way to a high-end role player or below, like a spot starter quality role player. I'm happy to put him in the middle as like a high-end role player if that's how you feel a little bit more strongly than me. But me personally, I would have him down 1. I'm still unsure on Jonny Wilson. And Jahan Dotson's a weird one. So I, as you probably saw on Twitter, went back and watched him a little bit because I got a little bit of time off at the moment. And I don't know, like, the film is different in 2023 to 2022. I watched a couple of games from 22 and I watched a couple of games from 23. And I don't know if there was like an attitude or if there was something not particularly right. I don't like the way they used him in Washington at all. Like, I didn't watch every single game. Obviously, I watched about 3. from 2023, but it was quite a lot down the field. There was a lot of deep outs, comebacks, which he's perfectly fine at, but he didn't get any like manufactured touches. Every single time there was like anything short, it was Curtis Samuel. Like every single time, it was incredibly predictable. Despite the fact they killed the Eagles defense twice last year. But anyway, I would probably go with Jahan Dotson as like starter upside. Just because I think the fact that he didn't make Washington's number 2 and they had no real reason to trade him and they did sort of give up on him. And I think based on his film last year, I think you'd say he's got starting potential rather than already being a quality starter. And that's based on going and watching him again. Yeah, it's not that I dislike Dotson. I mean, people listening to this are going to be confused if they heard me on the Breaking News podcast saying that he was like a first-round pick, and he was. And all I can tell you is what I saw. I wasn't as impressed with the film last year as I was the year before. There's a really good tweet that I clipped that if we weren't on Skype, I'd get you to pull up, where he runs like a it's almost like a crossing route, I guess. It's like a slant crossing route across the field, and he doesn't break it back at all. Like he just keeps running diagonally. And the cornerback just has such an easy like way of undercutting it because he doesn't like bend his route at all. It's quite hard to explain. I'm not doing a very good job of this, but when you're running like across the field, you don't want to run in a completely diagonal line because then obviously the cornerback can undercut you. If you bend off your route, you sort of stop the cornerback from getting on top of you. And I was quite surprised when I watched that rep because that to me was like what Dotson was known for, was like the nuances of route running and understanding how to do things like that. So I was a little concerned about if there was something going on, effort levels. I'm not sure. Once again, I'll leave it up to you. I think you could argue. I think basically it's a weird one. I think I'd say pre-draft and rookie. He's definitely a green. He's a quality starter. Based on what I saw last year, I might knock it back a peg ever so slightly to starting potential. I think that still fits the bill. So I'm not really massively fussed either way. But yeah, maybe I'll surprise a few people there when I have him there. But I'll leave it to you to. You can make the final decision now. Then, what do you want to do? Have I swayed you, or do you want to leave him as a quality starter?
Yeah, to be honest, I forgot he's in year 3, so he qualifies for the quality starter upside. So that's the easy one because I felt weird. I was torn between quality starter and high end role player, and now I'm like, oh yeah, there's a category in between that I can use because he's only in year 3. So I'll go with you on that one for sure. Let's talk Anaya Smith real quick. I think this will be quick. He is on IR, and so I've listed the IR guys: Anaya Smith, Albert Okwuegbunam, and Sidney Brown, who's technically on the PUP list, but they're on this too. Anaya Smith, backup special teamer. Any problem with that?
Absolutely none.
Okay.
Dare I even say he could be the ultimate, if we were really feeling mean, the practice squad guy based on a training camp, but I might not use that. Actually, I might use it once. Maybe I'll use it once just to be mean to someone for the sake of entertainment, but I won't use it on Anaya Smith.
Okay. On to Dallas Goedert then. I penciled Dallas Goedert in as Pro Bowl caliber. There's a time I would have put him in the top 5 at his position group. A lot of it, I think, has been injury related because I still really believe in the talent. I also think a lot of his value as a tight end is as a blocker more than a receiver, which isn't sexy. Not that he's a bad receiver by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not a George Kittle. He's not a Travis Kelce. Maybe I should list out more tight ends to figure out exactly where I have him, but I've got him in that Pro Bowl caliber rather than the all-pro caliber. What about you?
Yeah, I think as an all-round tight end, he could be your pro, but I think injuries and production probably knock him back as well. I think to be an all-pro, like you see what someone like Sam Laporta did coming into the league almost immediately, and you're like, yeah, that guy is really, really, really elite immediately. And I think Dallas Goedert, due to injuries and, as I said, production, and I think Dallas Goedert is an incredibly valuable NFL player. Like, and I'm a little bit worried about the tight end room and what would happen if Goedert does get injured again this year. So I would give Dallas Goedert, I'd agree with you. I'll put him as Pro Bowl caliber. I think top 10 is fine. I think maybe a couple of years ago, he may have cracked top 5, but I think there's a few younger guys that maybe show a little bit more than he does. And then the only other tight end the Eagles had on the roster was Grant. Is it Calcaterra? Is that you pronounce it?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. Backup special teamer. I've just not really seen anything. There's a little bit of Grant Calcaterra I've seen. I'd just like to say that hopefully I didn't get CJ Uzama fired. Because I did come on the podcast and was very critical. And I'm joking, by the way, we don't have that kind of impact. But last year it made us laugh when we produced the most critical episode ever on Sean Desire. And then after we released it, he was let go by the Eagles. Or no, he wasn't let go, was he? He was moved upstairs, should we say? CJ
He was
Uzama
sent to a work camp in Siberia.
Yeah, basically. CJ Uzama had about the worst blocking game I've ever seen from a tight end in preseason for someone fighting for a roster spot who's meant to be a blocking tight end. So that did not surprise me at all. I would give Grant Calcaterra the backup special teamer role. And in all honesty, I'm a little bit concerned about tight end too. So I think Jack Stoll coming back, I'm quite happy about, because at the very least, I know he can block. In fact, is this a bold prediction? Jack Stoll has more snaps than Calcaterra and Albert O this year. Does that count as a bold prediction from me? I don't know if it does, but I think he easily could, because he can block, and I'm yet to see that the other two guys actually can.
Yeah. Speaking of Albert O is on IR, backup special teamer for him as well.
Yeah, I've now tried to desperately look and think, can I actually use the practice squad player for anyone? It feels really mean now that if I don't hit someone here. I won't. Oh, maybe I won't give it to anyone. If I was going to give it to anyone, it might be Albert O, because the potential was there. But oh my goodness, he's just never done it. Like, I like what I see, and I've been quite complimentary. I watch him basically. This is how I watch Albert O, just in 10 seconds. I watch him run a really good route. The quarterback doesn't throw him the ball. I never know why, but there must be a reason why. And then he can't block. And that's basically his career. And I watch him go, wow, he's athletic. And the ball never goes his way. And I'm thinking, if he's that good, some quarterback once in their life is going to actually try and throw him the ball. So it makes me worry about what's going on in training during the week, because I swear he moves well. Like, from a purely athletic, that's a bit of a tongue twister. He looks good. He looks good when he moves. Just no one throws him the ball, and he doesn't do anything. His production is abysmal.
Yeah, right.
But yeah,
if you're a quarterback, how are you not like, hey, let's throw it to the 6'5", 260-pound guy that runs a 4.4 40? There's got to be a reason.
Yeah. So I'll go back up special teamer as well.
Okay, on to the offensive line. The Eagles kept 9 here. Jordan Mailata. I said Pro Bowl caliber. I don't consider him top 5, but I think maybe top 10 potential.
I think he has top 5 potential, but I don't think he's top 5 yet. So it depends how you look at your description. I think he could be, but he's not there yet. So I would agree with you. Should we just go through the 5 starters before we do backups?
Let's do it.
So I would do Mailata at top 10. So yeah, this is where I think it's weird. I'd put Landon Dickerson top 5, because I just don't think there's that many good left guards that I read about. And I'm not watching every single guard, but I do read offensive line guys. I know Brandon Fulton, basically everyone's on offensive line guy in the world. I know he thinks Landon Dickerson is top 5. So I would put him there. Cam Jurgens is a fascinating one. You can't put him anywhere other. Oh, sorry. Do you disagree with me on Dickerson? I should have said, or are you going top 5 as well?
No, I'm with you on Dickerson. I've got him top 5 as well.
Jurgens has got to be quality starter upside, because we just haven't seen him at center. So I don't think you can put him in a quality starter. I think by the end of this year, he could be a Pro Bowl caliber. I really do like the idea of Jurgens at center.
If he was at right guard, would you say quality starter?
Good question. Absolutely not. No, I wasn't overly impressed with right guard, but I felt bad for him, because everything he wants to do is get out in space, and he never did, because Jason Kelce just did it every time instead. Right. And why wouldn't he? He's Jason Kelce. So I would drop Cam Jurgens down. Mekhi Becton, I have no clue. Absolutely not. If you had told me before Jeff Stoutland worked with him, he'd have probably been backup special teamer. Now he's gone to Stoutland University for a few months. I mean, can you be really cheeky and put a quality starter upside? I mean, the Eagles must think he's going to be pretty good, because they're starting him immediately over Tyler Steen without even basically watching him. And Tyler Steen looks all right. I mean, he's probably not as easy.
He's not eligible for that, because it's his 5th season. So one of the distinctions for the quality starter upside is they've got to be a year 1 through 3 player. I've got him at like a spot starter quality role player. Like, I think maybe he's like, until he proves otherwise, I would say maybe replacement level contributor. And, hopefully he exceeds that role this year, but that's kind of how I'd view him right now.
Yeah, I'd accept that. I would accept that. What's that? What's tier 6? And then Lane Johnson, we need to discuss it for about 5 seconds. Top 5, top 3, top 1. Yeah. You name it. I still think he's underrated by some of the national media. Just the guy doesn't do anything wrong ever. I'm like, fair enough. I still hear people put like other tackles above him, and I'm like, just why? Like, what do they do that Lane Johnson doesn't, basically? Lane Johnson is incredibly. I think the Eagles are. I think we as fans just take it for granted that this guy just lines up as an island with no support ever and doesn't get beat. Which like that happens against everyone he plays. So yeah, Lane Johnson's top 5. I take it there's no debate there, or we may get shut down.
No, not at all.
Yeah, good.
I mean, if you told me he was top 1, if you told me he was a top 1 offensive lineman in the NFL, I would not argue with you.
Yeah, and then the backups, you can sort of, they're all a bit weird, aren't they? We haven't got Dylan McMahon here because he's not on the 53. He would be on the backup. I think he might actually have a role if Jurgens goes down. So the Eagles have got 4 currently. So Fred Johnson, Trevor Keegan, Tyler Steen, and Darian Kinnard. I guess we can put like the tackles together, Fred Johnson and Kinnard as backups, just because we haven't seen it. There's a part of me that wants to put Fred Johnson as a replacement level quality role player just because of preseason. But I've just not seen him do it in season. So it probably would have to be a backup at this point. Agree, disagree?
I agree. And that's where I would probably put Trevor Keegan as well. For now, he's a backup. He's purely developmental, and he may exceed that one day. But for this year, I would be really concerned if he ends up having to start half the season.
It just feels weird giving Tyler Steen a better grade than Mekhi Becton because the Eagles clearly don't think that he is better. So I'm sort of tempted to put him on the same level as Becton as a quality role player, spot starter, replacement level, because at the end of the day, I trust the Eagles' decision making when it comes to offensive line a lot. And let's be honest, this wasn't really a competition. Like the second Baldy came out and said Becton's going to start, I was like, oh, Baldy knows. Baldy knows. When Baldy talks offensive lineman in the Eagles, he's been told. Lane Johnson's been in his ear when they're lifting weights or something in their gym or whatever. So the second he came out and was like, oh yeah, Becton's going to start, and then Becton just doesn't even dress in half the preseason games. I'm like, oh, okay. I have a feeling that this training camp wasn't really a great battle. I think it was more of a, you're going to start for us. So I can't really give Tyler Steen a better grade because then it seems like I'm doubting Jeff Stoutland. And I don't really want to be doing that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. So on the offense, we have 5 all-pro caliber, 3 Pro Bowl caliber, 2 quality starter with upside, and then 3 spot starters, 3 high-end role players, and 6 backup / special teamers. So that's the offensive side of the ball. Before we get over to the defensive side, Jonny, any quick reactions to the Eagles' offensive 53-man roster?
Yeah, I mean, like, everyone worries about depth, as everyone does in every sport, but you can't really replace top guys. Like, at the end of the day, if AJ Brown goes down, the Eagles aren't going to replace him. If Lane Johnson goes down, the Eagles aren't going to replace him. You do your best, but it's an incredibly talented offense. I think it's got, like, this is not to hate on any other podcast that national guys do. I sound like such an Eagles homer this year because I really do think the Eagles are lower than they should be. And I'm not saying that as like a fan who's always going to say the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm really not that guy. I'm actually quite a pessimist when it comes to sports in general and my team. I don't get how I've listened to podcasts saying where the Eagles aren't a top 10 offense, but I'd like multiple guys. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, how? Like, someone tell me how. And even if you think Kellen Moore's okay, like, okay, he's had top 10 offenses most of his career. You've got a QB that I think is at worst Pro Bowl caliber. You've got 2 outstanding receivers. You've got a top 5 running back. You've got 2 elite tackles. You've got an elite guard. Like, I know anything can happen and injuries can happen. And I get the depth is a little bit shaky. But again, not every team has great wide receiver 4s and wide receiver 5s. Like, not every team has great depth at tackle. Not every team has a good starting tackle, let alone a good third. So I can't really believe that a lot of guys don't see the Eagles as the top 10. And if I'm wrong, I will openly come back and tell everyone that, okay, we were wrong or I was wrong. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it just looks like really talented. Like, I really struggle to look at the offense and think they're not going to score a hell of a lot of points this year.
Yeah, same. I mean, you're down on Jalen Hurts. You think last year is what Jalen Hurts is. If you don't think the Eagles will have a top 10 offense this year, because outside of injuries, the only way that I think they're not a top 10 offense this year is if Jalen Hurts proves that he's not the guy. And I certainly don't expect that, but I think there's a lot of people out there that do. I also think it's a what have you done for me lately league, and a lot of people just stick with what they saw at the end of the year when the Eagles looked totally helpless against the blitz, and they think that Jalen Hurts has been figured out. And I guess we'll see. We'll see real fast next Friday in Brazil.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something like very controversial as well, so I'll do it very, very quickly. There's a massive elephant in the room, which is Jason Kelce. Jason Kelce is one of the best offensive linemen I've ever watched. I think the Eagles are going to dearly miss him, and anyone says they aren't is kidding themselves. But he is, and this sounds bad, he is one player, and he's a center. And in pass protection a lot, he's not exactly lining up one-on-one with big defensive tackles and winning one-on-one. Like he's not. I don't know if this is a controversial thing to say, that I think I'd rather lose Kelce than someone like Lane Johnson still at tackle. I think there are ways you can manufacture the run game, and Cam Jurgens is so similar athletically. He's obviously not going to be Jason Kelce, and Jason Kelce is incredible. But basically everything else has got better. Like, except for losing Jason Kelce, either player should improve with age, or they've actually got a better player. Saquon Barkley, huge upgrade. In my opinion, huge upgrade. I don't think Swift was anywhere near as good as others did, as you know. Jahan Dotson over Quez Watkins is absolutely massive. Like Jordan Mailata a year older, and Dickinson a year on. I just think that downgrade from Kelce to Jurgens is not big enough to offset the huge amount of upgrades they make. So yeah, I'll say something a little bit controversial, the elephant in the room, but I think they'll be fine without Jason Kelce. As good as he is one player, and I think the Eagles have got enough to make do without him.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's roll on to the defensive side of the ball. Let's start with, okay, I tried to label these like nose tackle and defensive tackle, but we'll just go down the list here. Jordan Davis. Where would you put Jordan Davis on this list?
Oh my goodness, this is the one that I struggle with the most. I'm not going to call him a quality starter. He's year 1 to 3. I could go starting upside, but if I'm really honest, I'd probably put high-end role player. I could be persuaded by a starter upside though. Maybe to avoid hate on Twitter, I'll go. Oh, that's a really tough one.
Those are the two I was between. It's between high-end role player because I think he's exceptional at what he does as a run defender. And I saw some things that he was able to do in the pass game early last year before things started falling apart. So I'm kind of between the high-end role player and quality starter with upside. I would probably lean quality starter upside. That also might have to do with how highly I had him ranked in the draft prospect. I think he was the number 13 player on my board that year. Because again, I'm going to bet on athletic traits and try to work out the rest later. So I probably lean quality starter upside, but I'll go high-end role player if that's where you want to take it, because it was between those two.
I think I would go high-end role player right now. There's just flashes, but I want to see more. He could get to Pro Bowl, but I'm not seeing it just yet. Right, should we do the starters again on the defensive line? We'll do it that way.
Yeah.
Up next we have Jalen Carter and Milton Williams. I take it we're going to both agree Jalen Carter all top 5 already.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think if he's not seen by the national media by week 1, he will be by week 10. Is how I think.
I thought you were going to say if he's not seen that way by week 1, he'll be seen that way by week 2.
Oh, right. No, it takes guys a little bit of time to get, but I think he's going to absolutely go nuts this year. Milton Williams. I guess I'd go quality starter. I would go tier 3. Would you go higher or?
I would probably go lower. I actually had him kind of between quality role player and high end role player. For me. No,
that's a bad opinion. At the very least, he's got to be quality. He's got to be quality starter upside. Because the thing is, this is where it's weird when you judge players. Like Jordan Davis is judged differently because he was a first round pick. I get that, but he's also judged differently because he sort of has to be, because he plays a very different role. Like I think for what you want as your defensive tackle, like what I'm trying to say is, does Milton Williams go to a team and not be like defensive tackle free? Like, is he not just good enough to be a starter? Is there any team that Milton Williams wouldn't play like significant amount of snaps that plays a similar style?
Yeah, I don't know on that. Okay, I'll go with you.
No, why don't we go yellow then? Why don't we go starter upside? Why don't we go tier 4? Not yet there, but he's year 1 to 3, so we can use this rule to our favour that we keep rinsing. So if they get better, we can be like, well, we did say he has the upside to do it.
Wait, is this just his 3rd year? This is his 4th year.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah,
He's not done 3 years. Has he done 3 years in the league?
Yeah, because this is his contract year. So this is it unless the Eagles re-sign him.
I want to do quality starter, and I don't care what people think.
All right, let's do it.
Right, and then the Eagles had 2 more defensive. No, I guess 3 more because Thomas Booker, I guess, if you count as a DT. So I'll do it in order of DT4. So I had Morrow, Jomo. I guess you went all pro caliber, top 5, yeah.
On Morrow, Jomo, I had him pro bowl caliber personally.
Just you're not as high as him on me. No, I would go as it currently stands, starter upside. Is that fair? Am I too high?
I think so. Yeah, I kind of had him as a high-end role player because I think he's really good as a run defender. But given his age and stuff, I'm definitely can see the quality starter upside. So I'll put him there.
And then the other 2 guys we've got, I feel sorry for Thomas Booker because we haven't really seen him. He had a really, really good preseason. Really happy he made the roster. He stood out in the 3rd game in particular to me. And I tweeted, I think he'll make it. But I think we just haven't seen anything from him to suggest that he is anything other than a backup special teamer. And I guess you agree with that. And then Tui Pelotu, I don't know. Like, I just don't see a lot, really. Like, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I'll go back up special teamer as well. I liked the guy whose name I can't pronounce. Is it PJ Mustafa?
Yes.
He stood out more in preseason, but I also recognize it's preseason. Who the hell cares? So I'm not going to worry too much about him not making it, but I'd probably go back up special teamer. I think they're a little light after their top 4 guys. Do you disagree with those 2?
I do not. Marlon Tuipulotu is the guy I was most surprised made the 53. I thought he wouldn't make it.
Yeah, he was. He was probably mine as well. He was one of them anyway. I had a feeling that he wouldn't make it. I think edge could be the hardest one to do out of everything. Actually, edge and to be honest, everything on defense is not hard of an offense. Offense is easy. There's like 5 absolute superstars. Defense is hard. Do you want to take us away with let's do edge and then linebacker? How do you have the edge guys or starters ranked?
So Josh Sweat, I think I would say quality starter. He's more than a role player. He's been a consistent starter for them. Last year wasn't great. The year before was quite a bit better. I think I would just say he's a quality starter. I mean, Josh Sweat leaves in free agency. I think he's going to get paid to go be a starter somewhere. So that's kind of where I would put him.
Yep, I'd agree with that.
And I would put Bryce Huff in the same spot.
Yeah, me too.
We haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen him be a full-time starter. He's going to be this year. I think there's potential. He's a better player than that. There's also a potential he's not. But right now, I think quality starter is how you feel about him. Brandon Graham is tough because he doesn't play a ton anymore. And I don't know that his body at his age could take the amount of snaps it would take to be considered a quality starter. But I think the play he gives in those snaps is of that caliber. But I'll say he's a high-end role player for now.
Yeah, can you expect? I mean, Brandon Graham's not going to be a starter, is he, on many teams? So I would go high-end role player as well. Should I take it away with a fun one then, Nolan Smith? Is there the category of just like I have no idea? Like, I mean, he has to be a spot starter role player, tier 6. I don't think you can say he's a backup special teamer. I think that'd be a bit harsh because even if you can't rush a quarterback that well, I think he's good enough as a run player to at least be a role player. Because at the very least, he's a very, very good run defender. He gives it his all. He's a very sort of tough physical player who can get around. He'll make plays because of his athleticism. I think at the highest you could go is quality starter upside. He does have starting potential, but I think that would be generous based on what we've seen so far. Although I must admit, seeing as I've gone from the Nolan Smith hater to now I feel quite middling in my opinion of Nolan Smith because the fan base has fully turned. Like that preseason game seemed to just like I've been saying this since last year. I'm saying it since pre-draft. I was anti Nolan Smith. People wanted to draft him at like 10, and I was basically early second round. I was okay with it at 30, but I didn't really see him as a pass rusher. I said in my Bleeding Green film review he could be an off-ball linebacker because I didn't see him as a pass rusher, and I got absolutely killed, as you can imagine in the comments from certain people.
Yeah.
So, but now I've gone from being like the Nolan Smith defender because now all of a sudden people think he's absolutely useless. And I'm like, well, no. At the very worst, he's a good run defender who's extremely athletic, who's young. Like, you can do worse. Don't get me wrong. He's can't spin inside to save his life right now, but like you can do a lot worse from a player. He can at least play the run. He's at least very athletic. He can at least run around a lot and make some like weird and wonderful plays every week. So I don't think I'm going to drop any lower than that. Although I think there'll be some people that will put him in practice squad based on what I've seen online of late.
Yeah, I'll go with quality role player for him as well. Jalix Hunt.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to put him above a backup right now because I mean he is like edge 5, and the description for backup is purely developmental. I see an on-ramp to quality role player, especially for a guy like Fangio that likes to drop his edges so much. But
yeah,
I still think until I see him do it, I would have him listed as a backup / special teamer.
Yeah. I don't know. Preseason made me think he could jump up one, but I'm probably just like buying into the hype too much. I think this time next year we might be having a different conversation about Jalix Hunt, but I think it's fair to say right now he's I don't know, Shane. His backup special team are harsh. I'm looking at the people we've got. The other backup special teamers like Tui Pelotu, Kinar, Calcaterra, Covey, Tanner McKee. Am I being harsh?
I think
bump him up one.
I think Jalix Hunt falls into the purely developmental portion of that definition, where some of these other guys just fall into the depth player portion. Like I think you can be a backup for different reasons. So for me, Hunt, he's the developmental guy versus like Tui Pelotu, Darian Kennard. Those guys are just depth players.
Yep. And then I take it Patrick Johnson, we will go backup special teamer as well, just depth at this point. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, nothing major to add there. Right, linebacker is very weird. My goodness, this is getting harder. I don't know how to do a linebacker. Is Devin White a quality starter? Depends who you ask. Depends what game you watch from last year.
Yeah.
If you watch the 49ers game from last year, you give him practice squad.
I mean, on the sliding scale of Philadelphia linebackers, he's like Pro Bowl caliber. But if we're judging from a league-wide perspective, I think you say quality starter because if you think about, teams playing 2 linebackers, is he in the top like 64 linebackers in the NFL? Probably so. You could also argue like high-end role player for his pass rushing ability and things, but I think I would say Devin White's quality starter.
Yeah, he's not a role player because he's too good in coverage. He can do 2 things really well: rush and cover. Run defense is inconsistent. Just if you really want to like Devin White, just don't watch the 49ers ever play against Devin White because honestly, watching that game was like something else. The poor man had no idea what was going on with Kyle Shanahan, just completely and utterly ruined him that game. I'll give you quality starter. I actually think I would then be really strange. So I'm just going to say all mine at once because I feel like I'd lump them together. I would have the guy the Eagles are going to start as a quality role player, tier 6, Zach Ball. And then I would have the 3 guys below him higher than him because I sort of like them more. I would put the Kobe Dean, Jeremiah Trotter, and Shane. I would put Ben Van Sumeren as a quality starter upside. I really think Ben Van Sumeren could be like the wild card, like super athletic. I watched him quite a lot when he played last year. I watched him in the preseason. He's just so fast and he gets around so quickly. And it's weird watching an Eagles linebacker having sideline speed. I genuinely do think he could be a future starter. Like I really, really do. And I think Trotter's nowhere near as athletic, but he could be a starter because of his instincts. Like we could see those 3 guys could be the Eagles starting linebackers next year. Kobe Dean, Jeremiah Trotter, and Ben Van Sumeren if things go well. Am I taking crazy pills, putting those 3 above Zach Bourne, considering the coaches are making him start? What do you think?
I had Nakobe Dean and Trotter Jr. both as quality starter upside. For Dean, he's just got to stay healthy. I think he's good. He just can't stay healthy. Trotter, you can see it. I really like Ben Van Sumeren. I'm not sure that I would put him up there at this point. Based on what we've seen, I would probably put him as like a quality role player for the Eagles.
Yeah. The thing is, I watched him as a UDFA and I liked him, and then he made the roster and he looked good. So for the brand, it'd be amazing if he could be good. Like the brand could do. I've already got a Jomo on defense. Like I've already got Nolan Smith not being great. It's all going well. People forget everything I've ever said that's wrong. We'll just focus on the good stuff. I really do think Ben Van Sumeren could do it, man. Like I would fight for his corner to put him as a starting upside as well. And if you get bad comments, you can just send them to me. I'll
Let's
just tweet.
do it.
He's just so athletic. Like you just watch. Like I watched Davion Taylor. Oh, sorry, Davion Taylor. I pick on that man so much. He just could never play. Like Ben Van Zoom was a UDFA, and you watch him game one, you're like, oh, we can play. Like you can just see it. You can see that he can play in this league immediately. What a great pick that was, by the way. UDFA made the roster first year. I assume he made the roster last year. I don't know if he did at cut day, but he did obviously play in the season. And now he's made it his second year. So fair play. That's a hard one, though. I think people could be all over the place on those. I think some people could be harsher on Zach Ball and some people could be higher. I think some people will be way higher on the Kobe Dean than us, and some people will be far lower on Dean and Trotter. You could really have them a little bit all over the place, which is not surprising because it's the Eagles and it's linebackers.
Well, because it's all projection. Zach Bond's a pass rusher. Nakobe Dean's played like 200 NFL snaps. Trotter's played 0. Ben Van Sumeren is a second-year UDFA that barely played. So it's a lot of projection.
Do you know what's so weird, Shane? If we were to both start NFL teams right now, and you were to say, "Oh, I'll get first 2 picks at linebacker. I'll take the Devin White and Zach Bourne." That's what the Eagles are doing. And I got pick 4 and 5, and I picked Trotter and Ben Van Sumeren. Am I convinced that Devin White and Zach Bourne are better than Trotter and Ben Van Sumeren? I'm honestly not. Like, I'm honestly not that convinced that they would be better. Whereas if you take like another position, you take like defensive tackle and you go, oh, I've got Jalen Carter and Milton Williams. You've got Tuipulotu and Thomas Booker. There's not many other positions on the Eagles roster where I'm not saying that as like to be controversial. I genuinely think there is an argument that in a year's time, you could have that like order completely reversed. Like I know Devin White will probably be the best still because I think he is still got just incredibly high potential, but he's had some bad games in the league. And Zach Bourne has just never started. So it's easily the weirdest position on the Eagles roster right now because I'm not saying that to be controversial. I would feel pretty good walking out with Ben Van Sumeren and Jeremiah Trotter. I feel like I could do all right as a defensive coordinator with those two starting. But there we go.
I mean, it can't be worse than Shaq Leonard and
literally
Zach Cunningham. So
yeah, exactly. Nicholas Morrow, Zach Cunningham, Shaq Leonard. Like, oh my goodness, we had to watch that every week. Yeah, Shaq Leonard. I think I got PTSD from Shaq Leonard and Davion Taylor. I don't think they ever played together, which is probably a positive because that would have been the worst linebacker duo there has ever been. And one of them would have no idea what was doing, and one of them would have no idea. Well, the one that would be able to see it just wouldn't be able to make the tackle. If you could combine the two of them, they'd actually be okay. Shaq Leonard's brain and Davion Taylor's body would probably work quite well, but separately, not so much. Right, we've gone really off the rails there at linebacker, just like
we have. It's okay.
Let's go back. Cornerback. Let's take the starters. So Darius Slay, quality starter.
He's between like quality starter, Pro Bowl caliber for me, but given the age, I'll say quality starter.
I'd have to look at cornerbacks around the league as well. Like, I don't know. He is really good, Darius Slay. He is really good. And do you know what? Top 10? Maybe we're being harsh.
So you think about top cornerbacks.
I'm thinking of Pro Bowl as well. Like, it's a weird way of labeling it because who the hell likes the Pro Bowl anymore?
Yeah.
But I can imagine
Sauce
Darius
Gardner,
Slay,
Patrick Surtain, Jalen Ramsey, Trent McDuffie, Jalen Johnson, Jair Alexander, L'Jarius Sneed.
Yeah.
Denzel
Who's the other young
Ward,
guy?
Marlon Humphrey.
Yeah, Texans guy as well.
Stingley.
Stingley's going to be up there.
DJ Reed.
I think Darius Slay is like right on Depends if you count like safety hybrid nickels as well. You're going to count like your Brian Branches as well. Yeah, interesting. Let's make a decision. You decide. I think I would go quality starter still.
Yeah, I'm with you. We'll do as I start naming those guys off. I think he's
Yeah.
quality starter.
Where do you want to go next? Are we going to assume Isaiah Rodgers will play more snaps than Quinion Mitchell, or who knows? We'll do the two of them together.
I think Mitchell's the starter in base, and then he kicks inside in nickel, is what it seems like. So Mitchell,
starter upside.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say anything other than quality starter upside because he played 50 snaps in the preseason. Now, I was really high on Mitchell. I think he's going to be a really good player. It's hard for me to put much more on him than that. And Cooper DeJean is the same way for me. I think Cooper DeJean is quality starter upside.
Do we just put Ringo, DeJean, and Mitchell all as quality starter upside? It's boring, but they are, aren't they? They're all young guys that haven't.
Yeah.
Oh, man, this is where it's weird as well. I sort of prefer Ringo to Isaiah Rodgers, so I'd be tempted to put Ringo as a quality starter, but I don't think we've seen just enough from Ringo yet.
Right.
And the very fact that the Eagles are putting Rodgers above him, they must like what they see. So maybe we go quality starter on Rodgers, but that feels weird because having Slay and Rodgers in the same category feels odd to me. I haven't seen much Isaiah Rodgers.
He hasn't played in almost 2 years, so I'm with you. Yeah. I prefer Ringo to Rodgers, but I do think Rodgers is a quality starter, so I'll go on that as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's go quality starter. That's quite a tough position as well, but not as hard as linebacker. And then I think the next one's also quite difficult.
Eli Ricks, backup special teamer.
Oh, yeah, Eli Ricks, I didn't even see. Yeah, I was a little surprised he made the roster in some ways, but maybe not. I think good at special teams, I assume. I would go backup special teamer.
Okay. Then on to safety. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, where would you have him?
Oh, man. Eagles fans are going to hate me if we don't put him Pro Bowl caliber.
I don't have him Pro Bowl caliber.
No, the league told you what they think because they didn't pay him. And he didn't get much, did he, the year before? I think he plays like his mentality is of a all-pro caliber. Is he actually? I think this is a tricky one because in the Eagles system, he's so good. I think you can argue the Fangio defense in a bubble, he's almost perfect for that nickel safety hybrid. But I think you have to go starter.
Quality starter?
Yeah, I think so.
That's what I have.
Yeah, I think so. I think his versatility makes him almost more important for the Eagles. I don't know if it annoy people, but Reed Blankenship, I'd go the same. I'd go quality starter, personally.
Okay, I had him as a high-end role player.
Oh, what? Yeah. I think he's better than that. I think Blankenship's I don't know. It seems like Blankenship more than everyone else. I'm a bit what does he not do well? He runs pretty well. He tackles very well. He comes down very quickly into the box.
This is only his third year. We can say he's quality starter upside.
Brilliant. Stick him in there.
I like that. I like that better than saying he's a high-end role player.
He struggles a little bit with coverage versatility. His man coverage can be. He'll get beat by good tight ends and good receivers, but I think overall he is a very. I think he's a very good player. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
Now we get weird.
Vontae Maddox.
Yeah, I just don't know. We haven't seen him properly at safety. I think he can do it. I guess he's a high-end role player / No, I think I'd give him a high-end role player. The one below.
That's what I had.
And then James Bradbury. Everyone's going to want to give him practice squad or backup special teamer. I think at safety, I'd go one above and go quality role player. I think he might have enough juice at safety. I think he made the roster, let's be honest, because of cap, partly. But I think Vic seems to speak the truth when Vic Fangio, and he seems to quite like what he's seen from Bradbury.
He comes downhill and run defense a lot better than I expected. Given how bad of a tackler he was last year, I did not expect him to come down from depth and make plays in the run game at safety like he did in the preseason. So
yeah, I would go quality role player for Bradbury and then one below for Tristan McCollum. backup special teamer. I know
And
everyone was
then
outraged if he didn't make the team.
I led that charge, apparently.
Yeah, because he flies around like 100 miles an hour. Yeah, I've never seen him in coverage. So it's like, I get it, in preseason he's down, but he must have impressed the coaches because he did make it.
Speaking of a guy that flies around and is never in coverage, Sidney Brown is on the pup list. Another guy that I would die for Sidney Brown. But where do you have Sidney Brown?
Now that we've got your non-biased take out of the way, I put him in the same as the Ringo, the Jean, Trotter, the Kobe Dean, the quality star upside. I think he could easily be a starter by the end of the year. I think he's going to always be more of a role player than an every down player, but I think he can do a number of different roles well, and he's also just awesome to watch on film. So why the hell not?
All right. And that wraps up our defense. So any quick thoughts on the defense, and then we'll label the special teams and get out of here.
Yeah, so just quickly, because you added them all up with your crazy maths, which might be harder for the defense because they've got a very defense heavy. But essentially, they've got, 5 superstars on offense, and that doesn't even include Darius Slay. If you include Darius Slay, Devontae Smith. If you include all Pro and Pro Bowl on offense, we're talking 9.
8 of 11 starters on offense, 1 of 11
mental.
starters on
defense.
And
on defense, we've just got Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
But then again, I think the actual starting unit is pretty strong. What I think is really obvious when you look at this on paper is, oh my goodness, Eagles need Jordan Davis to be good. If Jordan Davis isn't good, I think this thing might come crashing down in run defense because there's not a lot behind him. Like Ajomo and Milton Williams are good, but they're not nose tackles. They're not playing zero technique. They're 3 techniques, ideally 4 eye techniques in a 5-man front. Ajomo's like strong, but he's 290 pounds strong. He's not Jordan Davis size. And then everything else is just a bit random. Like, honestly, this could look so different on defense for the end of the year. You could have a different starting linebacker, a different starting cornerback, probably not different starting safeties, but you never know with Sidney Brown being back. Yet on offense, you look at them and go, well, they're going to be your starters. Maybe Bexon changes, maybe there's an injury. But if you take out injuries, offense is set, defense is really, really random. Defense could be anywhere between 7th best defense and 22nd best defense this year. Like, it could just really, it's going to come down a lot to how well Fangio can coach them up. But it's a pretty fun unit. I got to admit, there's been worse defenses I've watched. It's a pretty fun group, even if I'm not sure about everyone.
Yeah, you can tell where a lot of the draft capital has been invested over the last few years, because if you just look at the quality starter upside, on offense, there's 2. On defense, there's 10, counting Sidney Brown, who's on the pup list. So,
and counting Ben Van Sumeren, who's a UDFA, but
which is iffy.
I'm taking it.
But I'll direct that to you. So, to be honest, Moro Jomo, maybe a little iffy there as well.
Wow.
I just realized you have Moro Jomo in a higher tier than Jordan Davis.
Yeah, that's not going to go down well, is it? That's not going to go down well. Should we drop a Jomo to the same tier as Davis?
I think we probably should.
Yeah, until he learns to pass rush, fair enough.
Yeah.
Do we drop Ben Van Sumeren as well? No, screw it. You can put an act like Johnny Page 9 next to Ben Van Sumeren's name if you want. Just bring the hate to me.
Sounds good.
The good news is hopefully he doesn't play, so I can't really be wrong either. Because if he doesn't play very much, well, can't prove it.
That's true, unless the linebackers are a dumpster fire like last year, and everybody's like, well, Johnny said Ben Van Sumeren is a quality starter. Why is he not out there?
No, I said starting potential.
Then we can just tell everybody Vic Fangio doesn't know what he's doing too.
Yeah, there we go.
With Sean Desai and Matt Patricia, but we can play the greatest hits. I hope it doesn't come to that this year. But real quickly before we get out of here, let's talk special teams. Obviously, they keep Jake Elliott, Rick Lovato, and Braden Mann. No surprises there. For Jake Elliott, I would put Jake Elliott in that all-pro caliber. I mean, I think he's got the potential to be a top 5 kicker. Missed extra point / field goal in the first preseason game, notwithstanding. Where do you have Jake Elliott?
I hate to break it to you, Shane, but if anyone's ever heard me talk or write, special teams are not my thing at all. So I'm going to put Jake Elliott as a top 5 because he doesn't miss. And I think for kickers, not missing is good. So I'm going to go Jake Elliott, all pro caliber. And then I really don't know much about they've got the long snapper and the punter. I don't recall them being a problem. So I'm going to go they are good starters, and you can tell me if I'm horrendously wrong.
Now I'm with you. They must be quality starters. I've not noticed them. So that works for me.
Yep. Yeah, there we go. That's the Eagles 53-man roster on Skype in a very weird way.
Hopefully this comes through.
This.
Hopefully you guys are actually hearing this because the recordings all worked. Yeah, we may have just talked into a mic for an hour and no one will ever hear it. You know, you hear of things like that. It's never happened to me.
You do. It's a bit scary. It's a bit scary. If not, we'll just tweet the graphic out and then people can just make their own minds up and imagine what we'd say. We probably haven't said anything that will shock too many people based on our previous opinions anyway. But yeah, there we go. Overall, Shane, pretty good roster. Like a little bit top heavy, but do you know what? If I could philosophically give me an elite offense and a defense with pieces that could work, like, yeah, I think everyone's a little bit further down on the Eagles than I am this year. I think it's a very boring take, but it's going to come down to the coordinators, isn't it? It's going to come down to what Kellen Moore and Fangio can do. If they have really good coaching years, I think Howie has done a good job giving them both the talent. They need to respectively do what they need to do. Like the Eagles are not trying to have a top 5 defense this year. I think they've got enough pieces there. If Fangio can't get this unit to average, then I think that's a little bit of a worry. And if Kellen Moore can't make this a top 5, 6 offense, I think that's also a bit of a worry personally. But there we go.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you guys have it. We only have one episode left to fill until we're getting to week 1 film reviews. And we've got a special season preview planned for you guys. We are going to be joined by Brandon Lee Gouton from Bleeding Green Nation. So you guys be sure and tune in to what will hopefully be a live podcast, because surely by then StreamYard will be fixed. And we'll break down season expectations and predictions with BLG. That'll be a fun show. So you guys come out and show your support to that one. You can follow us on Twitter. Be sure you follow the podcast at Eagles Pin Pull. We tweet out promo clips from nearly every episode. Again, 5-star ratings and reviews are greatly appreciated. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Shane Half NFL. He is at Jonny Page 9, and we will catch you guys next time.